Welcome to the next chapter of As the Story Grows. I'm Brian Patton. It's Friday, which means it's mailing list day. On most Fridays, I shoot out our mailing list, highlighting the episodes for each week, some personal news, a few album highlights, and more. You can find a link to the mailing list in the show notes and at asthestorygrows.com. It's the best way to stay informed with what's happening on the podcast. Today we welcome Matt Wainwright from Cold Gawd to the show. Cold Gawd will release God Get Me the Fuck Out of Here on September 23rd via Dais Records. Links to pre-order the album will be in the show notes. Matt talks about the influence of Green Day, being a fan of all genres of music, the impact of new gaze on his musical direction, how COVID impacted him and influenced the new album, and so much more. I love getting to share new music, and Cold Gawd's shoegaze jams are incredible. So I hope you enjoy getting to know Matt Wainwright from Cold Gawd.
I grew up in the Inland Empire, more specifically a city called Rancho Cucamonga. But my girlfriend and I lived in Chicago from 2018 to 2021. So pretty short stint, but I got like family ties out there. Like my mom was born out there. And a couple of like my aunts, they got family out that way too. So like Chicago's in the blood for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, well, what was growing up like for you?
What was growing up like? I mean, it was easy, you know. It's like it's suburban living, so you know, it's like nothing too crazy, but you know, nothing too exciting. Like I grew up pretty much like walking distance to like all the schools that I went to growing up, and you know, parents were in the house all the time. You know, they both worked. But they were pretty much always home. They like they got a divorce when I was 15, but they're still like very cordial and like cool with each other. So even though it was like, you know, splitting time between like two households, it was like I still had both of my parents. Like they're very much in the picture. Like I'm at my dad's house right now doing this.
Nice.
So then I was just house sitting for my mom before like this morning. So you know, we're all very tight.
That's awesome. What got you into music?
Man, that's a big question. I've always said that like my first musical memory was I can remember, so when I was very, very young, we were moving, my parents, me and one of my sisters, we were moving from the East Coast back to the West Coast. And we were staying with my aunt for a little bit. At least this is also like, I must have been 4 at the time. So like, this is just like,
you've heard the story so many times.
I think I've told it so many times that it has to be true. Right. But anyway, so we're at my aunt's house, and I swear like the 2 artists I can remember hearing, as a kid was like Ye and DMX. And I was like, what are these sounds? Like, I really love what's going on here. And then as time passes, you know, I will say like my parents, like they were in band in high school, but it wasn't like too musical of a house. Like it wasn't always like music going on all the time. But I think the big like Kickstarter for it was I was in it must have been 3rd or 4th grade. And I had this kid who lived like down the street from me. He has like a classic iPod, right? And he's like, yo, have you heard of Green Day? And I was like, no, never. And this is American Idiot.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, this guy says, fuck America. And like, I don't know if he means it like that, but like, it's the wildest thing I've ever heard. And so he puts it in my ears, and I'm hearing American Idiot. And I'm like, whoa. And then like, I think it just blew my mind. I don't know what it is about it, because like when you think about American Idiot now, it's like what, a 4-chord song that's like
right, yeah.
simple. in structure, but like it just blew my mind. And then from that point on, like I went home, I found Green Day's website, I watched all of their videos that they had, and I was trying to like mirror uh Billy Joe, and I was trying to mirror him playing. I was like, oh, this is cool. And then, that kind of like spirals from there. So this is like 2004, and like 2004 or 5, I find out about Hot Topic. So then from that point, and then, Viva La Bam was on TV at the time. So the music goes from like Green Day to him to Slipknot. And Slipknot was like the first band I think like I really like got behind. Like I had so many Slipknot shirts as a kid. And so I think it pretty much started there. And then, I'm the oldest out of all my siblings. So I like kind of had to discover everything like on my own. Yeah. But like, I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, I was just like on the computer all the time. Like, okay, what's this? Okay, what's this? And like, I fell in love with everything. And as a kid, I remember growing up, it was like, you had to like rock or you had to like rap. Yeah. And it was very like divisive. And I was like, the light skinned black kid at school who was like, I think I like everything. Right. And like, it's just blowing everybody's mind. Like I remember one thing I always like to talk about. Like I remember when Kanye's Graduation came out, and that was like, they were making the fake feud between Ye and 50. And it was like, who's going to sell more copies, 50 or Ye? And this is when I was in the 6th grade, and everybody in the class said 50. And I was like, I think Ye is going to do it. And like, look at where Graduation is now. Yeah. Like in the scope of, and not to say that, I forget, was it Curtis? I think was the 50 LP that came out at the time. But yeah, I think like from that point on, it's just like, I think I like everything.
Yeah. Yeah. No. It's funny how like how influential Green Day was and still is to this day. Like
100%.
Whether it was like Kerplunk or Dookie or American Idiot, like a decade later, it's like generationally people were like that. So many people's into like punk and rock music.
Oh yeah. And even like Dookie was my first CD. Like it wasn't the first CD that I bought. I think the first CD I bought was Slipknot's Volume 3. But like the first one that I was ever like gifted that I didn't take from my parents was Dookie. It was my first CD. And then, all I knew was American Idiot. And like, this is before I even had an idea of albums and shit. Mm-hmm. So like, I knew all the Green Day singles, and I knew like bits and pieces of American Idiot, but I never listened to like a Green Day album in full until I heard Dookie. And then I was like, whoa. So again, like you said, it's just how monumental all that shit is, and like, really like setting the roots for people in like guitar music.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's weird how people like feel like you have to pick a genre of music to stay in your lane. Like I remember in high school, it's like, listening to that DMX debut and then putting on the Limp Bizkit CD and having a mosh pit with my friends. And it's like, both of those things worked.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know where that even comes from as a kid, like not wanting to like everything. And I mean, like, I'm sure we both grew up the same way where it's like, oh, country's ass. Right. But like, sure, I mean, you can feel that way as a kid, but it's like, rock and rap and pop can all exist in this world. Like my first ringtone, back when you could get ringtones, and I didn't buy it, thank God, I fucking stole it, but was Lady Gaga's Just Dance. That was like my first ringtone. So at the same time, I'm like the only black kid walking around school in a Slipknot All Hope Is Gone shirt. My ringtone is Lady Gaga, and I'm also like the biggest Ye fan. So like, walk, and then I was like into wrestling at the same time. Just this a big like question mark that people are like, that we don't know how to pick this kid down.
Right. Which is interesting. How much of that do you think influences the music you do now, is just like consuming it all and not like feeling like you have this freedom to create? Like
100%, like just liking everything. I remember like having a conversation with my mom when I was a kid, and I don't know if you remember like on MySpace or even back, because this happened to me on YouTube back when you could like really customize your channel. But like everybody would post like, I'm on the maggot truck, or like I'm on the Evanescence truck. And this is all I just remember like I kept doing it for like a bunch of different genres, and like a friend of mine was like talking shit, and I told my mom, and I was like, why doesn't he like everything? And she was like, baby, like, that's like limited scope of thinking. Like you got
Yeah.
it figured out. And I think just from that point on, it's like it's just led into, like you said, what's going on now. So like, where even like it says like on all the blogs and everything that like everything's R&B inspired, and even if like that's not, you can't gravitate towards it immediately through the track, it's like very much my approach to, at least like when I do singing. Like when I'm in the studio, like I'm always trying to emulate different singers.
Yeah.
And so like eventually when it comes out, and people can reference back to this, but like when when you hear that, that's me trying to do like my Snow Allegra impression, because I needed my voice to be in a certain place that like my normal tone couldn't hit, but I can do highs, and that wasn't quite exactly it either. And so through a lot of wine and tea and a decent impression, I was like, all right, like how would Snow do this? Like if you if you were Snow in this situation, how do you sing on this track? And I think like it kind of, that tonally is very different than like a bunch of other songs on the record. But yeah, like R&B, and especially like structure wise, chord wise, I always pick up a lot of stuff from R&B artists more than I do maybe rock or alternative, whatever you want to put it. But
Yeah.
I just, the way that like R&B with hooks and bridges, like, I mean, there's a reason like that stuff's on top, right? And like I think you can also draw a line. Yeah, I might be going crazy with this one, but you can draw a line. You can draw a line between like Kurt and the way Kurt would write Nirvana songs, in the same way that like the typical R&B structure is. So it's like verse, chorus slash hook, second verse that's just a little bit shorter, and then the like chorus again, then a bridge, and then like chorus one or two more times, or even just like, and then like when you get to guitar music, maybe in place of a bridge, you do like a no vocal bridge, or you do like, that's where you get like loud and wild, like I think Kurt
Throw a
had it
solo
figured
on there. Yeah.
exactly. And I think Kurt had that model figured out, and Usher has it figured out, a Solange has it figured out. And so it's like, why not bring that same type of energy? Drake has it figured out, so again, like why not bring it to guitar music?
Yeah. You said you were watching Green Day videos, learning to play those songs on guitar. Like when you started playing music, were you just like playing guitar, trying to be in like traditional rock bands or metal bands, or were you also dabbling in like beat making and being an MC and rapping?
So like, oh God, I wish. I think like I wish I could have been a rapper, but I grew up in suburbia, so like there's not too much. The subject matter is a little lacking at that point. I have to become like
hood.
I got to become like Lyrical Miracle and like some like conscious shit, and like I love all the braggadocious stuff. Like I'm a huge like I said, Ye and Drake fan, and like they can talk their shit, but they can also talk their shit because like they're really rich and they went through some shit too. So like, not to say that I haven't gone through anything, like my life isn't all peaches and cream, but like I said, they have a whole totally different background. And
yeah.
Anyway, I wish I could rap. But no, so like starting playing music for me actually started so I wanted to be a singer because I didn't know how to play any instruments. And also like as before, even when I said like I didn't grow up in a very musical household, like my mom and all my aunts, like they all know how to sing. And so I grew up around like a lot of singing, and my grandma knows how to play the piano. And so they did like church stuff all the time. And so for me, it started with singing. Like I always wanted to be a singer. And then, like I was saying before, like it was Hot Topic era. So I thought I could be like a screamer.
Yeah.
And my dad was saying the other day, my mom was trying to show my dad moving to California. And I was like, oh, like he hears it all the time when we practice here. And he's like, yeah, like, he's not screaming anymore. So I really enjoy that. So like I wanted to be like a screamer. And then, there was kind of no shortage of that over here. And I wanted to be in bands ever since I was like in the 8th grade. So there's like no shortage of singers. And so I was like, all right, well, what is there like a lack of? And so there's like there's only like 2 kids who like play drums over here. So I was like, all right, let me figure out how to play drums. And so I learned very basic like Warped Tour, metalcore, double kick pedal drums. And then, but I never owned a drum set. So it was always like, let's have the kid who's like, can we practice at the drummer kid's house? And then like their parents would get fed up with it. So I was like, all right. So like I very loosely figured out drums. And then from that point, then I learned bass. But I learned bass because some kid was like, oh, let's make a band, but you should be the bass player. And I was like, word, but I don't have a bass. So we went down to Sam Ash and he was like, I think you should buy that one. And I bought it. Like I just had, I don't know how as a kid I had just $250 lying around, but I bought this just used Squire bass, jazz bass. Actually, I still have it. But I bought it and I was like, all right, I'll figure out how to play bass. Then I learned bass, but again, I had no bass gear. And then from that point, then I started like being in bands and like I would borrow, hey bro, I know you guys are like up next. Can we borrow your shit or whatever? That I was that guy, unfortunately. But then after that, I was just like, no one wanted to write the music that I wanted to write. Mm-hmm. And not in a bad way. It's just like, while everybody was still on like trying to be like melodic hardcore, like Being as an Ocean type shit or Counterparts, I was already in like the emo revival sort of wave. So like I wanted to write like twinkly emo parts. So then that's when I actually figured out how to like write guitar stuff. Mm-hmm. And like the first time I actually like tried to learn like a tab and like not give up, I was trying to play like a snowing song. So like, and then I'm learning about open tunings and I'm like, wait, this isn't EAD, GBE. Like, what is all this? And I'm like breaking strings and shit. But yeah, so that was probably like my senior year of high school, like when I figured out how to like play guitar. And then from that point on, I just brought the last 4 to 5 years of like half-assedly learning all this stuff. And then like I started to like get my own gear. And then that's like, I just brought all of that into the band that I wanted to make like right after high school. And so same thing with that band as in Cold Gawd, like I wrote everything. And I think just from that point on, I've like just been learning like how to get better at playing guitar. And I'm still learning today, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I think that's where it all started. It's just a lack of people who knew how to play instruments around here. And then also just a lack of people wanting to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So it's like not out of desperation per se, but yeah.
Yeah. Cold Gawd started as a solo project.
So Cold Gawd is like, now it's in like this very different form that like I'm so glad that it's in. Like, I always knew that it was going to be this way, but it's kind of interesting living in it now. But so my band from high school, it was me and a friend of mine, and like I said, same thing as in Cold Gawd, like I wrote everything. And we did that band for a few years, and then that's when me and my girl moved to Chicago, and then that just kind of like fizzled out. And I was like wanted to be like a coffee guy, so like I kind of like let music go for a second, and then the pandemic happened, and then I had a bunch of money from unemployment and a bunch of free time, and that's what every musician needs is money and time, I think. And so I finally had it. And so I had all of these, I had all these songs kind of left over from back then, and like some stuff I had been writing over like the 1.5 course. We had been in Chicago at that point. And so, yeah, I guess like at that point, it was a solo project, but I think there was always the intention. I mean, of course there was always the intention of it being a full band, but I was in, and I tried to make like a couple of bands with people when I was living in Chicago, and none of that stuff was really gelling. And so it was just like, well, I know these songs inside and out. Like I'll just record everything. Yeah. And, eventually down the line, once, the pandemic subsided, because that was the thought at the time, when the pandemic would subside and, these songs had some time to live, and I like people heard it, because I think that too, it's kind of like hard. It's interesting being in a band and like kind of like writing from scratch. Like it's a difficult process, and not to say that it's like not one that I'm like not interested in. I mean, people do it all the time, but I like having something and bringing it to people, because then I think it's like you're not making a band with somebody and then they're like, oh, actually, I just don't like the way that this is going, and then they quit on you before you even recorded a record. But now I had things to show to people.
Yeah.
And like I even had like the demos for God Get Me when I was trying to introduce it to get the band together that we have now, and everybody was like, yeah, I'm on board. And so it was kind of like, it was like a cool way, like solo project, and then bring everybody in.
What led you to this kind of spacey shoegaze sound?
Whir, man, whir. That's like, yeah, the whir. They're just the greatest thing to have happen. I mean, whir and nothing. Like the whole new gaze era. So I was like on Tumblr. I was heavy on Tumblr at the time, and I remember Touche Amore was supposed to play a show at Chain Reaction. Well, they did play the show, but where it was supposed to open. And this was back when I was like really excited about music. Not to say that I'm not, but you know, as you get older, you get a bit more jaded. And I was like, oh, I have to listen to everybody at every show if I don't even know who they are. And so Whir was on the lineup, and I was like, who's this Whir band? And so I heard the June 7-inch. So on the A side it's June, and on the B side it's Sunday. And I was like, yo, this music's like, this is I don't think I've ever heard anything like this before. And like, not to say I haven't heard atmospheric music, but like, that's when it like clicked. And then I was like, I got to know everything about this Whir band. And then I think like maybe shortly after, the Around EP came out. And that was like the only thing I had on my phone for a while, was just the Around EP, just those 4 tracks. And, you know, through Whir, then of course you find Nothing, like the two go hand in hand. And then pretty much just like what we used to call shoegaze summer was like the summer 2014, like after I'd graduated high school. Like all my friends, we saw Nothing open for Ceremony. We saw Whir do their Sway tour, and from that point on, we were all hooked in on it. So we're in Nothing, and I mean the whole, and Cloakroom too, you know, they're part of the new gaze stuff. I just like, a lot of my direct influence definitely comes from Whir and Nothing. So shout out to them. Like it's cool, man. I got like a Whir tattoo. I have a Nothing tattoo too. So like, you know, the whole, like, again, new gaze, Guilty of Everything, Sway, like that's what did it. And then of course, you know, through there, then you find out the classics, you know.
Yeah.
You get your My Bloody Valentine's, Cocteau Twins. And even them, you know, those are big inspirations as well. But I cannot stress it enough how important Whir and Nothing are to the sound. And I'm sure it's pretty evident, but you know, like I feel like I gotta pay respect where respect's due to the OGs, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. The record is called God Get Me the Fuck Out of Here. What was inspiring you, not just with the title of the record, but kind of thematically as you were writing?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like thematically, the album is a lot of like me figuring myself out. Like I think especially when my girlfriend and I had moved to Chicago, we were just like, I feel like it was just go, 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 go. And you know, I had never really like took the time, and not to blame it on the Chicago move. I think it's honestly, it's more so just me being like a kid in my 20s, like early 20s, who was like, oh, I like going out drinking all the time, and just like moving and not really going through any self-reflection. But you know, with the pandemic, that definitely like, you know, you just had a lot of time to like sit with yourself, you know, you weren't going out all that much, and like I still found time to like hang with people. And so I was like working a lot by myself with the company I was working for in Chicago. And, you know, I just had a lot of time to just like sit and think and like, oh, wow, like, you know, that's like some unaddressed like issues I had with like people from my past, or even just like unaddressed issues I had with myself. And even when my girl and I moved back from Chicago to California, when we moved back, I like got into therapy. And, you know, through shout out to my therapist at the time, but, you know, she really helped me understand that, like, you know, it was a lot of, I was not putting like enough time into myself, even though I always felt like I was. I think it was just like in a negative way. Whereas now it was a lot of self-reflection in a positive way, like trying to figure out, oh, okay, like what are the parts about myself that I do like? What are the parts about myself I don't like? And whether it be just me, relationships I have with friends, family, whatever, and like trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. And so the album thematically is just me going through like a lot of like those friendships and the relationship I even have with myself, and just figuring out like, you know, or just figuring it out. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. Like, you know, at the end of it, you know, there's no like grand resolution, like I'm better now.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, but that's pretty much like, you know, all the songs are just, you know, trying to figure out different aspects of my life. And I think as you're trying to figure yourself out, you know, shit gets tough. It gets dark sometimes, and it gets hard. And so, you know, you kind of want to say shit like, God, get me the fuck out of here.
Right.
And that more so happened, that the title came to me when I was like working by myself, because it was just like, there was just a lot of shit going on at the time. And I don't know, it just felt like this is probably, I think I might have came up with the title in the era of the pandemic where I don't know if this is like for everybody, but at least like in my work experience, it was like, oh, we're just gonna give it another month and everything should be good. Oh, we're gonna give it another month. All right, how about 3 months? And then the end of those 3 months come. Let's get 2 weeks. It was just a lot of like, are things good? Are things not good? Like, how do we set these things up? Like, you know, masks, no masks. And, you know, a lot of it, I'm sure like everybody felt it in different ways, but at a certain point I was just like, yo, fuck this. Like,
Right.
I'm over it. I'm just over life. Like, this is just like so fucking difficult right now. And, you know, I think I was just at work and I like, the name came and I was like, all right, I think this might be the title name, but I had to write it down for it to like sit. And I still have like the piece of paper that I wrote it on. But I was like, okay, that's the title. Cause it's just, you know, the whole album, I guess, like to chalk it up is just, you know, it's like dealing with like just being exacerbated by yourself and everyone and everything around you.
Yeah. Yeah. How'd you get connected with Dais Records?
That's a fun story. So for Dais, first of all, I'm a fucking fan. Like, first and foremost, I love that label. And shout out to Gibby and Ryan and everybody else, you know, on the gang, you know what it is. But man, so what happened was we played a show. We opened up this hardcore festival in LA called Back to Black, and Cult Nation was doing a piece about it. And shout out to Sean from Cult Nation. He like hit me on the side. He was like, yo, we're doing this piece, but I really want to let you know that like I love y'all's sound. Like I love what you're doing. And like to see like, you know, a person of color, a Black person doing music like that. I mean, even just the whole festival was centered around people of color and like how, you know, there's just all these different sounds that we can all make. And, you know, guitar music is definitely like white dominated. And, but the thing is, it's like, yo, there's like other people out here like killing shit the same way. Whether people, how they don't find it or it gets passed on, you know, that's up to the individual. But, you know, that was like the point of the fest, was to really like emulate that, or put a shine on that, you know, people of color like kill this shit too. And so, but we were the only like non-hardcore band. And it worked out a certain way, like, and shout out to Braxton from Zulu and Shred, like he made it possible for us to be on there. But anyway, he was like, yo, I love y'all shit, I just want to like give you praise. And I was like, yo, thank you so much. And a couple days go by, he hits me up and he's like, hey, just want to let you know I've been like talking about y'all to like a couple labels, and but Gibby from Dais really wants to talk to you. Is that cool? And I was like, yeah, like, of course. And that happened like on a Tuesday. I think the next day, Gibby and I were on the phone, and it was just, like all engines on go from that point on, like just foot on the gas. And so that's pretty much how we got linked up through Cult Nation, through Sean and his wonderful family over there. So if it wasn't for them, who knows how it could have happened. I mean, I've always wanted to be on Dais, like, so, I think I've always would have tried to make it happen, but Sean with the fucking lob of the century, like it made it possible for like this dream of mine to happen. I'm really proud of what I was able to make, and I'm glad that Dais heard it and they were like, yeah, like we got to put our support behind it. And like I said, that's some dream come true shit. Like, to be on the same label that put out Them or Us 2's Remain, to put out the first Spice record. I mean, Ricky, the list goes on and on. Choir Boy, Death Bells. I'm gonna eventually end up listing everybody on the label because, again, I love it so much. But I don't know. I think the record's great. It's called God Get Me the Fuck Out of Here. Go pre-order it now on daisrecords.com. I think that's the website anyway. And we got a bunch of cool variants. There's a cool shirt. I designed it. Super minimal. It's it's what you've come to expect from Cold Gawd, whether you've been around or you just peeped the site one time. There's a vision here. But yeah, record comes out September 23rd. Just want to shout out the crew. Shout out Duck, Cameron, Steven, Georgie, Devin, Brandon, Art, Gabe. Shout out to my wonderful girlfriend Tori. She's really like the backbone to this whole thing. She's like supplied all the goods to make it happen. So I love her very much, and without her, like none of this shit's possible.
De rejeter la faute sur tout le monde. Ça n'a jamais été que moi sur mon chemin.
Thanks for listening to As the Story Grows. Our intro music was written and composed by Jeremy Hunt. The As the Story Grows theme is by Bob Nana. If you like what you hear, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and give us a rating and review. If you'd like to support the show financially, you can join us at patreon.com/asthestorygrows. Be a part of our community and join the ongoing conversation over on Discord. If you enjoy this episode, share it on social media with your friends. Much appreciated, and thanks for listening.
I never felt so young and alive as when I'm diving into a tune. And now I'm learning as I listen along, and the wheels are turning, and I started a song. One good word and I'm gone. Oh, attack